The only people who don't want to disclose the truth are people with something to hide.
Do me a favor, raise your microphone and let's listen for a second.
Freedom is contagious.
This is what freedom looks like, what it sounds like.
This is like the Berlin Wall coming down.
What we're seeing here now is what we saw in the eastern part of Europe. They ripped down the Iron Curtain.
A giant party going on out here. Fireworks. We've got everything out here.
It feels like this country is about just got married.
This is Jeff Kuhner from the Washington Times, sitting in for Michael Savage on the Savage Nation. Michael Savage is off tonight. Michael, I just want to thank you so much, my friend, from the bottom of my heart, for this incredible opportunity to fill in for you again tonight. I can't tell you how honored I am, Michael, whenever I fill in for you. But tonight of all nights, when we are now seeing history unfold before our very eyes, I am frankly doubly grateful to you, Michael, and to all of you out there in the Savage Nation. All of you, go to michaelsavage.com. You have to now. We are living through momentous times, life-changing, historical times for the absolute latest must-read stories. The lead story on michaelsavage.com, it's all you need to know. President Mubarak resigns, hands control to military. Today, on the 32nd anniversary of the fall of the Shah in Iran, when another leftist president in the White House, then Jimmy Carter, betrayed a pro-American ally and left him hanging in the wind. And 6 months later, while the liberals in the press were going on about the glorious revolution in the streets of Tehran, Islamist butchers came to power. Radical Muslim fundamentalists who seek to erect a global caliphate, who have been at war with America and with the West for the last 3 decades. And now, almost to a T, almost as if you are repeating history, but only 32 years later, different country, different capital, same players. The liberal hacks in the mainstream media, led by CNN, MS Left BC, and the New York Times. You heard some of it just on the montage, are now hailing this as if it is another repeat of the fall of the Berlin Wall. Obama as the great liberator. Obama as the second liberal Reagan. If you've noticed, my friends, over the past 6 to 9 months, as Obama's presidency slowly dwindles and collapses in front of our very eyes, as his popularity plummets, as he gets shellacked in the midterm elections, as he loses independents, conservatives, and even many moderate mainstream Americans, as he loses the American heartland. What has the media been trying to do? What has been the narrative coming from the Obama White House, echoed by every hack in the press? Obama as Reagan. Obama as the new Reagan. And so now, in the face of this incredible foreign policy disaster for the United States, with our staunchest Arab ally in the region now having fled from office, he is now hiding out in the Red Sea resort in Sharm el-Sheikh, probably on his way to exile in Saudi Arabia, as Mubarak is holed up in a resort. What is it now that the media is claiming? A new birth of democracy. People power in action. Change, but not only from America, but now erupting in the streets of Egypt. Liberal democracy sprouting everywhere in front of us. All inspired by the dear leader in the White House, Barack Hussein Obama. It is now 1989 all over again. And except, although Reagan and then later Bush helped to liberate hundreds of millions of people from communist occupation and oppression, now it is Obama freeing 80 million Egyptians from Arab autocracy and Arab dictatorship. My friends, don't buy it. It is now the greatest spin and the greatest lie maybe ever peddled in U.S. history, and I don't say this lightly. Because what we are now seeing is nothing less than a disaster for the region, for Egypt, for the West, for Europe, and most especially for America. Because as Hosni Mubarak has now stepped down, as he has been driven out of office by the military, who do you think is going to win the elections that are set in September? That the military has said they're going to hold. It's not going to be liberal Democrats. It's not going to be secular progressives. It is going to be the Muslim Brotherhood. They are the most organized, disciplined, and efficient political force in Egypt. They command the loyalty of at least a third to half of the population. And just as we saw in Iran 32 years ago, it is almost eerily parallel, eerily similar. You had a weak figurehead, a supposed moderate in power, who will preside over some unstable, incompetent regime for 4, 5, 6 months. It will lurch from crisis to crisis. And then the ayatollahs, the mullahs, will be sharpening their knives and getting ready to cede and come to power. And that is what is going to happen. El-Baradei, the supposed Nobel Peace Laureate, who hates the United States, hates Israel, hates the West, who has spent his life gorging at cocktail parties and lobster lunches at the UN in Vienna and in New York, is no match for these Islamist butchers. They are going to make mincemeat out of him. They're using him as a Trojan horse to get into power. And once the Muslim Brotherhood comes into power, everything will change in the Middle East. This is not even Iran. This, my friends, is Egypt. I'll never forget what a very close Arab friend of mine once said to me. I asked him, I said, how do Arabs look at the Middle East? Is there a country that people look to as a sort of cultural, moral, historical, civilizational model? Is there an America in the Middle East? Is there a Britain or Germany in the Middle East? Is there a Japan in the Middle East? He said, yes. He said, Jeff, it is Egypt. It is the land of the pharaohs. It is the land that has been the greatest trendsetter for all Arab peoples and cultures. It was Egypt that introduced radio, literature, art, cinema, mass politics, industrialization, nationalism into the Middle East. As Egypt goes, so goes the Arab world and the Middle East with it. And so if Egypt should go fundamentalist, if it should go Islamic, as it now looks obvious that it will send shockwaves across the entire region and the world. It will be nothing short but a disaster. Because then Syria will follow. Lebanon will follow. Saudi Arabia will follow. Every single Arab country will follow the model of Egypt. And that is why today, on the 32nd anniversary of the fall of the Shah and the beginning of the Islamic Revolution in Iran, who holds a major speech? When all these liberals in the media, the Anderson Coopers, the Brian Williams, all of them, the Chris Matthews, softball on softball, all of them now coming out praising this great liberal revolution. Oh, how brilliant Obama was to literally pull the rug out from Mubarak and stab him in the back. Who is there? Gloating, laughing, mocking, cheering every step of the way. It is the fascist dictator of Iran, Mahmoud I am a nut job, Mahmoud Ahmadinejad, who today, holding out a speech, holds up a placard saying death to Israel. And as he announced to the world, Egypt will now fall to the Muslim Brotherhood. And now there is going to be a new Middle East, a radical Islamic Middle East, a Middle East where Israel will be wiped off the earth and America will be finished. as the crowds cheer in Tahrir Square in Cairo, as they cheer in Alexandria, as they cheer in cities across Egypt, those are not cheers of freedom and liberation. Those are the cheers of the Muslim Brotherhood and radical Islamists who now want to drive America and Israel and the West not only out of their country, but out of the entire region and out of all of Europe. This, my friends, is now maybe the greatest foreign policy disaster in our lifetime. And rather than being worried, rather than saying, my God, we are staring at another Iran, a Muslim Brotherhood that not only will impose a fundamentalist state, but in fact has openly said we seek nuclear weapons just as Iran seeks nuclear weapons. A potential war with Israel now looms, a disaster for the entire region. What does the dear leader in the White House, the con man in chief, say? No, this is freedom's second spring. This is now the yearning of the Arab masses to be free. He is cheering them on. He is cheering the Muslim Brotherhood on. My friends, Jimmy Carter betrayed the people of Iran and our strongest ally because he was naive, because he was incompetent. Obama is not naive. He's not even that incompetent. He is cheering them on because he wants the Muslim Brotherhood to come to power. He is a traitor, and he has now openly allied himself with the enemies of America. And so the question I have for you is this: why is the mainstream media cheering on the Muslim Brotherhood in Cairo and in Egypt? Is the fall of Hosni Mubarak the beginning of a new radical Islamic resurgence in Egypt and the Middle East? 1-800-449-8255. This is Jeff Kuhner from the Washington Times.
This is what freedom looks like, what it sounds like. Just listen to the square. People are overjoyed. There are flags flying. There are people dancing literally in the streets. And down this road, there are people pouring into Tahrir Square, Liberation Square. This is the moment so many people in this country have dreamed of.
This is Jeff Kuhner from the Washington Times, sitting in for Michael Savage on the Savage Nation. Well, there you heard it, my friends. The liberal media, MSNBC, CNN, frankly, even Fox, everybody is now jumping on this liberal democratic revolution bandwagon. Hosni Mubarak has fallen in Egypt. His regime has been swept into the dustbin of history. And the question in front of the Savage Nation is this: will this lead to another Iran? Will Egypt now go Islamic and fundamentalist? And why do you think the liberal media is cheering on what is obviously going to be a major victory for the Muslim Brotherhood? 1-800-449-8255. Tony in Florida on line 3. Thanks for holding and welcome to the Savage Nation.
Jeff, thank you very much. You remember in 1960 when Castro took over Cuba? The vermin in the media were all over him like a cheap suit, like he was the second coming. And what did we get? We got a sadistic Stalinist pig who runs a prison in Cuba called the Isle of Pines. Not since Auschwitz has there been a hellhole like that place.
Tony, listen, you're completely right, and I want to thank you for that call. This is, to me, what is remarkable. If you look at the leftist media in this country, they cheered on Fidel when he seized power in Cuba, yet they don't want to tell you how he turned that country into an island prison, an anti-American island prison, peddling revolution against the United States all over Latin America. No. He was Fidel the peasant reformer. He was Fidel the champion of the underclass, not Fidel the mass murderer. When the Shah fell, this is exactly what CBS, NBC, ABC, the New York Times all did in 1979. They don't want you to know that now. No, this was a great victory for democracy. What a genius Jimmy Carter was, standing with the people in the streets of Tehran. And what did we get? A regime even more brutal, even more murderous than the Shah. A regime that stones homosexuals and adulterers. A regime that literally enslaves women. a regime that is now sponsoring terrorism against the United States all over the world as we speak. They are arming suicide bombers in Afghanistan and Iraq to kill our soldiers. They are now on the verge of acquiring a nuclear bomb to annihilate the Jews in Israel. This is what Jimmy Carter left us. This is the same thing that they were cheering then that they're cheering today. And so I have to ask all of you, is this naivete on the part of Obama? Is he just incompetent and stupid like Jimmy Carter? Or is there a pattern here? Is there now a president who seems to always egg on and embolden the forces of radical Islam? Have you noticed? Under his watch, America and Israel are always getting the short end of the stick. We are going to be right. Soros has been the grand puppeteer behind Obama. He is the sugar daddy of the Democratic Party and the internationalist left. He is the one, along with Obama's State Department, that has sent in the activists into Egypt. They are the ones that encouraged this entire supposed revolution in the streets. Have you noticed? Everywhere you look around the world, it is Soros and his cronies who make out like bandits. In revolution after revolution after revolution, he comes in to buy up the minerals, the resources, to come in and short currencies and literally make out with hundreds of billions of dollars. Excuse me, millions of dollars, billions of dollars. My friends, this is the man who is determined to destroy America and make his fortune upon the ashes of the United States. And when the Muslim Brotherhood comes into power in 6 months and they become firmly entrenched, who do you think is going to get a lot of these lucrative deals with the Muslim Brotherhood? You think it's going to be you? You think it's going to be me? No, 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 no. It's going to be Soros. It's going to be people like Soros. And what we are now seeing before our very eyes is what we saw 32 years ago in Iran. Just as the left cheered on the Ayatollahs and the mullahs, they are now cheering on the Muslim Brotherhood. Why? Why is the left so determined to see radical Islam come to power? The Islamists are religious. They're pro-life. They don't like gays and lesbians. Believe me, they're not big fans of most of the things that the left goes for because they know one thing. The Muslim Brotherhood and the radical Islamists hate America. The enemy of my enemy is my friend. And we have been seeing, under the Obama administration, the unholy alliance of the far left with radical Islam. And that is why, if you notice, 2 years ago, when the people of Iran rose up in Tehran, in protest after protest, hundreds of thousands, millions on the streets, much bigger than what you saw in Cairo. What you see in Cairo is nothing compared to the Green Revolution in Tehran. Where was the con man in chief? Did he speak about democracy? Did he speak about freedom's second wind? Did he speak about a rebirth of freedom and democracy? He was silent. Dead silent. In fact, he groveled to Iran's supreme leader. This was an internal matter for the Iranians to solve. But now, when you have the Muslim Brotherhood about to come to power, when you have an anti-American, anti-Israel, anti-Semitic force about to come to power and completely transform the region and turn it into Islamic radicalism, suddenly, no. This is now literally the beginning of a new birth of freedom in Egypt. Notice the hypocrisy. Notice the double standards. Let's go to Jimmy in Wisconsin on line 10. Jimmy, thanks for holding. Welcome to the Savage Nation.
Yeah, you were just talking about there being double standards, and I think you make some decent points as to what could be happening over there, but I guess I truly consider myself libertarian first, conservative second, and I do not think supporting a dictator, regardless of whether it being the Republican side supporting it, or in this case, of course, the, frankly, socialist democratic side supporting it, or trying to tear it down, it doesn't make any sense in my mind, because we sit here and we espouse values of freedom and self-determination and self-governance, but here we are trying to either support or tear down another, frankly, a dictator in Mubarak, why can't we just leave it be? You know what I'm saying?
Jimmy, look, I understand. Look, essentially it's the Ron Paul argument. Basically, if we just mind our own business, we have no right getting involved in other people's internal affairs. Here is the problem with that argument, Jimmy. I understand that. You want to protect the Republic. Believe me, I want to protect the Republic. I don't want us to be an empire. However, there is the reality of evil in the world. And the choice that now confronts us in Egypt is either you back a pro-American ally, although a dictator, or you have the Muslim Brotherhood in power. Take your pick. There's no third option. And so the problem with that line of argument is this. We betrayed our pro-American ally in Iran. And now we have thousands of Americans dead in Afghanistan and Iraq because of it. We now have a dangerous regime on the verge of a nuclear bomb that is not only going to annihilate Israel, but most likely lead us to a major war in the Middle East, a nuclear war. If you look at the Muslim Brotherhood, they now want a global caliphate. They want to spread radical Islam, not just in Israel, not just across the Middle East. They want to spread it in Europe and they want to spread it here. They are mortal enemies of the United States. Now, I believe in democracy. If these people were genuine Democrats, I would support them. But this is the key point. See, in Iran, yes, for a while there was democracy until the Islamists come to power. Then there's no democracy. So if you really believe in democracy, it's not a one-time election. You see, in September, there's going to be one election. Yes, one man, one vote. The Muslim Brotherhood will come to power. And then that's it, kaput, it's over. They are not going to allow a second election. So if you don't play by the rules of democracy, if you don't truly respect pluralism, if you don't truly respect checks and balances, you have no business being in the political process. So if Obama is really sincere, here is what I would say. We support elections in Egypt. We are happy that there's freedom in Egypt. However, the Muslim Brotherhood cannot participate in any elections because they don't respect democracy. They want to overturn it the moment they come into power. So if you're not going to respect the rules of the game, you can't be a player. He will not say that. And he gives the game away. He will not say it because deep down, he wants the Islamists to win. Jimmy, this is not a conspiracy theory. After this break, I'm going to show to you and everybody over the last 2 years how we have declined and Islam has risen. My friends, we have a president in the Oval Office who is aiding and abetting the enemies of America. If nobody else will say it, I will. He is a traitor. This is Jeff Kuhner, sitting in for Michael Savage on the Savage Nation.
The only people who don't want to disclose the truth are people with something to hide.